Latarian Milton is not your typical 7-year-old. Few his age have ever driven an SUV up and down several busy streets. It all started at his mother's townhouse. Latarian says he took the car keys and hopped into his grandmother's Dodge Durango. This was the broadcast that I first heard in 2008, having no idea the profound impact this 1 minute and 41 second clip would have on me for years to come, but also having no idea about the dark chain of events that this seemingly innocuous enough story would set into motion. One that would shatter lives, destroy relationships, and leave lasting trauma. To learn how Latarian went from early internet meme royalty to finding himself among the worst criminal offenders, stick around to the end of this video. Welcome to Crime History. Everyone knows that YouTube's original slogan was broadcast yourself. The very idea behind the name YouTube played into its then novel concept of seeing yourself on the monitor. But even in those early days, it wasn't just a hub for home videos. Many of the most beloved clips on the site were moments ripped from traditional media. In fact, YouTube co-founder Jawed Karim first gravitated towards the idea of making it a video sharing site after missing the live broadcast of Janet Jackson's infamous Super Bowl halftime show in 2004, specifically the huge wardrobe malfunction that happened at the end, and being disappointed when he couldn't find any videos of the incident online. Many of the earliest viral videos were also live TV bloopers. There was the everlasting classic Lady Falls on TV.
Good morning, Brown family! Gloria, Bobby, Fred, and Janae, wake up!
The 75 million view stalwart Zombie Kid Likes Turtles.
Jonathan just got an awesome face paint job. What do you think?
I like turtles.
All right, you're great, Zombie.
The painfully weird Grape Lady Falls.
Oh no, oh dear.
For the mass hysteria that was the leprechaun in Mobile, Alabama.
To me, it looked like a leprechaun to me. All I gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else in the leprechaun say yeah?
But none of these captured my attention quite like 7-year-old boy steals grandmother's SUV. With 2 versions uploaded April 28, 2008, they combined for 18 million views, taking us into one of the strangest cases the Palm Beach Gardens Police Department has probably ever responded to. But before we get into the news report that catapulted Latarian into stardom, I'm gonna take it back to his home life. Latarian Milton was born August 30th, 2000. Several internet gossip blogs and biography websites claim that Latarian was the son of Shaniqua Milton, who gave birth to him at just 16 years of age. They all claim that she had her own legal issues and substance addictions, causing custody of Latarian to go to Shaniqua's mom, Zakita Stratford. However, I couldn't find any records of Shaniqua or her alleged run-ins with the law, and came to believe that Shaniqua Milton isn't her government name, or that she was made up by the internet entirely. Latarian's real mother is actually Ashley Milton, who has one public photo with Latarian on social media and has a history of felony and misdemeanor cases dating back to 1997, a few years before Latarian was born. Ashley was born in 1980, by the way. She was actually 20 when Latarian was born, not 16. The real smoking gun was the paternity case she filed in 2001, where a DNA test confirmed that Latarian's father was a man named Dwayne Mickens on February 6th, 2002. Latarian was born into a world where he was already surrounded by crime. I'm not gonna get into all of it because we'd be here all day, but by the time Latarian turned 7, his mom had been involved in 27 documented cases as a defendant, including 6 felonies, 13 misdemeanors, 4 domestic relations cases, and perhaps most notably, 2 criminal traffic cases. In her first traffic case in 2002, the charge was dropped. However, on June 12, 2006, she pled guilty to driving while her license was suspended, canceled, or revoked, and paid a fine for it. You have to wonder if the then 5-year-old Latarian saw this and figured he could do the same thing and get out of trouble by paying a fine. Latarian's father was equally troubled, having to defend himself on the stand 28 times from 1996 to 2008, including 18 felonies, 4 traffic infractions, and 3 criminal traffic cases sourcing from Palm Beach County court data. Obviously, we don't know what it was like at home, but according to Latarian's grandmother, he and Ashley were physically and verbally abusive towards each other pretty much all the time. Sadly, it's a well-worn trope on my channel. It feels like half the villains I talk about in my horror history series had a bad home life growing up, and they just ended up continuing the cycle of abuse. It seems like his grandmother recognized this was an issue.
And I know what causes this behavior because all he's ever seen was his parents do physical, abusive, and verbal things.
We really have no way of knowing if she was really a better role model, though.
If I thought they wouldn't take me to jail, I'd whip his behind right now.
Why can't you be a better example?
There's no shortage of research to suggest that childhood abuse is linked to criminal behavior. Take this study from the US Department of Justice, for example, which says being abused or neglected increases the odds that the individual will have an adult arrest by 1.72. Latarian didn't have to wait until he was an adult for that to happen, but we'll get to that shortly. Young Latarian had dreams of being a fireman. He loved playing video games, and supposedly, if his wiki bio page isn't a total lie, he enjoyed watching Tom Cruise movies, though maybe it would have been better if his grandma hadn't let him watch Days of Thunder. By that description, he sounds like a typical 7-year-old. But, as we know,
Latarian Milton is not your typical 7-year-old.
April 27th, 2008 was the date of the Joyride that changed his life forever. Latarian and his grandma were at his mom's townhouse putting together a toy basketball hoop, and Latarian got mad because his mom wouldn't let him bring his friend inside the house. So he took the keys off the counter and his friend joined him as he drove to Walmart, hitting several cars and eventually crashing into a sign and totaling the vehicle. Looking back on this now, it's a pretty sad story when you consider the upbringing that he had up to this point, what actually happened, and how close he was to losing his life.
You know, I just thought, oh my God, I'm getting ready to bury my grandson.
However, I was in middle school when WPBF 25 News dropped their coverage of the story the next day, and as a middle schooler, this news segment was fucking hilarious. Right off the bat, seeing Latarian with his camo shorts sagging to his ankles, strutting around like he owned the block because his grandma exchanged insurance information, you just knew this kid was a character. But it was his attitude that solidified him as an internet legend.
I want to do it because it's fun. It's fun to do bad things, to drive into a car.
But did you know that you could perhaps kill somebody?
Yes, but I wanted to do hood rat stuff with my friend.
What does he mean drive into a car? Is his English just bad, or was he intentionally trying to hit other vehicles? I genuinely have no idea. Every single line from this interview is a golden nugget that I used to quote over and over with my friends in middle school and even high school. In particular, Latarian seems to idolize anything that he knows he shouldn't be doing, like a rebellious teenager trapped in a 7-year-old's body.
When I came through the back door, I looked on the counter, my keys were gone.
I took my grandma car because I got mad at my mom, and then I suddenly had my friend come in, and he smokes with cigarettes.
Latarian claimed he knew how to drive the car from observing his grandma and other adults do it, but he's hilariously unable to really describe what he was doing.
I yanked the thing.
The 2006 Dodge Durango had the gear shift behind the steering wheel like this, so he's most likely describing putting the car into drive. Someone reported a driver who looked too short to see over the steering wheel to police, but Latarian and his friend weren't going to let a few obstacles slow them down.
Along the way, he ran over 2 mailboxes, hit 2 parked cars in a Costco parking lot, and struck 2 moving cars near Walmart.
Thankfully, no one was killed. But the funniest and maybe most telling part of all of this was Latarian's proposed punishment for himself.
You don't think he should be punished for all of this?
Just a little bit, no video games for a whole weekend.
This one line just gives us so much. The fact that he committed larceny, grand theft auto, reckless driving, criminal mischief, and destruction of public property, and thinks no video games for 2 days is a valid punishment is a testament to how little discipline his grandma was giving it. It's also maybe a reminder that he's only 7 years old. The younger you are, the longer a whole weekend feels. I mean, how do you punish a kid that young and make him understand the severity of what he did? Snapping the front axle of a Dodge Durango isn't exactly the same as breaking a cookie jar. I'm not a parent, but all I know is when I was his age, I got grounded for a week for riding my bike too far. No video games for the whole weekend is not cutting it, but the police, to their credit, tried to do their part to help the kid by giving him more of a proper punishment.
Palm Beach Gardens police said they do plan to move forward with charges of grand theft against the 7-year-old. He's obviously too young to go into any type of juvenile facility, but police say they do want to get him into the system so they can get him some type of help. In Palm Beach Gardens, I'm Ted White, WPBF News 25.
Ted White was in his first year at the local ABC station, and he did not know it yet, but he just signed off on his magnum opus, a story that he'd continue to be tangled in for the rest of his career. To this day, it's still the most viewed clip in the station's history, and many would say the popularity of the video became part of the problem. One re-upload, titled "Gangsta 7-Year-Old Steals Car," had reached over 1 million views within its first month, and several others were in the hundreds of thousands. People were bewildered by the attitude of the self-proclaimed hood rat, with one prophetic commenter saying, "That's so messed up. He's obviously going to end up in jail at some point." Another empathetic internet user who clearly understands the delicate push and pull of parenting a child from an abusive household added, "I would strangle that fat little bitch." The video sparked parodies, responses, and countless remixes. One video that still echoes in my head to this day is the Latarian Milton Hood Rat remix from Jesus Was a Black Jew Productions.
No video game for a whole weekend.
And it was 2008, the golden era of YouTube poop, a meme genre consisting of often vulgar re-edits of pre-existing media clips.
Latarian Milton is not your typical 7-year-old. Along the way, he ran over 2 hit 2 children in a Costco parking lot, and struck 2 7-year-olds at Walmart.
I want to do it because it's fun. It's fun to do with my mom.
There's also another, lesser-known video from NBC affiliate WPTV5 West Palm Beach, which really made it seem like Latarian hadn't learned a thing, and his attitude had only increased after the incident.
Why did you take the car?
Because I wanted to do it. My friend was in the car with me.
Where did you take it, Latarian?
I took it on a high-speed chase.
He seems almost remorseless here, and I think his comfort with being a little kid speaking to an adult the way he does probably says a lot about how little his grandma did to discipline him.
What do you think about the people whose cars you hit?
I'm saying nothing about them.
I also love the little details in this report. They say Vikita was busy helping build a basketball hoop when Latarian stole the car, but you can see right here, it's just like a plastic toy. Like, what could this have taken to build? 15 seconds? And just the contrast between a kid who would play with this and a kid who is driving a real SUV, it's such a bizarre story. Unfortunately, it seems Latarian and possibly his grandmother were bit with the fame bug, and just a couple weeks later, he would have another run-in with the law. There's an old saying that goes, nothing good ever happens at Walmart, and that would hold true for Latarian Milton, who returned to the Lake Park, Florida location just 2 weeks after attempting to drive there with his friend on May 13th, 2008. Ted White was summoned to cover the next story in the saga.
The problem began when Latarian asked his grandmother to buy him some chicken wings. She said no, he got mad, walked over and ordered them anyway. When his grandmother confronted him about it, Latarian snapped.
They started hitting me. They started hitting me in front of the whole Walmart.
This one does make me wonder. Vikita was only 53 at the time. Whether or not she really needed to call the police is certainly debatable. You could say that she wasn't in danger, but she wanted to get him a mental evaluation before he was too big to handle. But then, why is she still talking to the news?
When I first got the rental, let me take this for a spin. And so now I just sleep with the keys, I lock them up.
No one was throwing the accusation that she was doing any of this for attention or profit quite yet, but that would change another month later in June 2008, when Latarian, his mom, and his grandmother were invited to go on Judge Judy, a popular courtroom reality show where the titular judge was known for her blunt, no-nonsense approach to cases.
Latarian Milton and his grandmother are here in their home getting ready for bed. They say they never dreamed that what the 7-year-old did with this SUV would land them a spot on one of their favorite shows.
We're going to the Judge Judy show.
Encouraged by show producers, Latarian Milton's grandmother says she plans to sue her daughter, blaming Latarian's mother for allowing him to steal her SUV, then drive off.
Because she told me to get out of the house and leave, so I picked up the keys and left.
Perhaps the sharp-speaking TV judge could finally scare some sense into the boy.
Latarian knows he's also in for a lecture from Judge Judy.
I feel pretty bad about it. I don't mean to do it, I just want to get a new life. Just move on to a new life and get a job and a house and a wife.
As concerning as it is that this kid is already thinking about getting a wife, many saw this as a generally positive development. Donald Peel, one of the victims whose car was hit by Latarian, was not one of them. His lawyer stated, "Here's an example of Judge Judy encouraging a suit to make it a real court case and get the kid on the show. The kid is being flown out to California on Judge Judy's dime." Peel actually suffered back, neck, head, and teeth injuries, and was actively trying to reach a settlement between the two insurance companies, so he wasn't happy to see his attacker using the attention to become a star while he continued to suffer.
Latarian claims he's ready to face the judge, because although it can be exhausting, he says he likes all of the attention.
Because then I can be a superstar or something. my God.
It's an often overlooked part of the viral story. Latarian actually did a lot of damage with his Joyride, but everyone was too focused on the funny headline, 7-year-old steals SUV, to notice.
Latarian Milton exposed. We've seen him as a playful and happy 7-year-old. At other times, he's apologetic.
I'm sorry what I did to my grandma's truck, and I'm sorry what I did to all you people in the hospital. And I love you, and I hope you be impressed.
But then there's his wild side.
Can I leave now?
This would never come to fruition though. In late June, a week before Latarian was supposed to fly out to tape the show, Judge Judy rescinded her offer, issuing a statement. Judge Judy does not believe in fostering litigation, and if that is what happened, then canceling the case was the only option. It doesn't really make sense because Stratford made it seem like the show's producers were the ones encouraging the lawsuit in the first place. I wonder if canceling the taping was a way for her to save face after the collision victim Donald Peel spoke out against Latarian and all of the media attention he'd been getting, almost as if the media was encouraging his behavior. Latarian would still get his Hollywood moment, eventually, because I don't think anybody sees Daniel Tosh as the pillar of morality that they see in Judge Judy. For those not familiar, Tosh.0 was a Comedy Central series focused around comedic critiques of viral internet videos. Think of it as Equals 3, but on cable television, or MTV ridiculousness, but more scripted. The best part of Tosh.0 was a segment called Web Redemption, where Tosh would meet up with a viral video star to offer them a redemption, or one more chance to leave a lasting impression on a massive audience by being on his show. On February 24th, 2010, a now 9-year-old Latarian would get his chance at redemption in an episode called Hood Rat Kid.
He was busted for stealing his grandma's SUV. He committed larceny at the age of 7. How many other kids do you know can pull that off?
Tosh doesn't shy away from glorifying Latarian's actions, but at the same time, some of his commentary feels like it was a little prophetic.
Do you send him to juvie? I mean, the idea of a tiny child-sized prison is adorable, but it's not the answer. The only thing juvie is good for is preparing kids to get tossed into big people jail.
He claims Latarian needs a positive, wholesome role model, then goes on to not be that, positioning himself as more of a friend.
Did anybody tease you because of the video?
Just some kids at my school.
I don't know, they're probably just jealous.
Just because I'm going to Hollywood.
You're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He goes on to ask if Latarian still thinks it's fun to do bad things. Spoiler alert, he does, and they go around LA with Latarian teaching Tosh how to do hood rat stuff, like opening a fire hydrant, gambling in an alley, selling bootleg movies, shoe tossing, graffiti, and the grand finale, stealing the network president's sports cars.
Gangsters first.
While the Tosh.0 appearance in 2010 only seemed to further encourage criminal behavior, Latarian would be depicted on TV again just 4 months later. Only this time, he would be painted in a much less sympathetic light.
I am the stone that the builder refused.
On June 6th, 2010, a season 3 episode of the Adult Swim animated series The Boondocks would introduce the world to a character named Milton Tayshawn, who is 8 years old during the main events of the story. I don't know if I've ever seen a character who is a more overt satire of a real person before. The opening sequence is Milton picking up one of the protagonists, Riley Freeman, so the two boys can drive around and smoke cigarettes, and many of Milton's lines are directly lifted from Latarian's various news interviews.
I went and drove and picked up my friend, and he smokes with cigarettes.
And I suddenly had my friend come in, and he smokes with cigarettes.
How do you feel about those people you hurt?
I don't care nothing about those people.
What do you think about the people whose cars you hit?
I don't think nothing about them.
Because it's fun. It's fun to do bad things.
I want to do it because it's fun. Fun to do bad things.
Even insignificant details are included, like the chase ending at Wally Mart, Riley actually getting his behind whipped while Milton's grandma does nothing to punish him, a Ted White character on channel 24 News instead of 25, and a follow-up incident where Milton assaults his grandmother over chicken wings, where they even recreate this exact shot.
You have to understand, he really likes that fried chicken.
But the Boondocks, which is no stranger to using satire and humor to dish social commentary, is sure to highlight how it carefully draws the line between how Riley's granddad reacts to media requests about his son versus Milton's grandma.
Can't believe Granddad wouldn't let me do no interviews. Milton blowing up over this. I bet he get his own TV show.
In fact, they really exaggerate how compliant the grandma is in Milton's antics. Like in real life, the only consequences he really gets are a forced apology, and he develops a dream of becoming famous for doing bad things. There's one key difference in the way that the Boondocks portrays Milton compared to the media coverage of Latarian to this point. Where Latarian was often portrayed for laughs as a cute kid who got into a wacky situation, Milton is an unparalleled evil on the same level of Michael Myers, and the episode actually turns into a parody of the original Halloween, with Milton taking the spot of its unfeeling antagonist. There's even a character named Dr. Doomis, a school counselor who deals with Milton whenever he gets in trouble. Knowing just how evil the boy is at his core, Doomis makes it his mission to destroy him. Dr. Doomis is clearly this story's version of Dr. Loomis from Halloween, Michael Myers' psychiatrist who knows better than anyone just how evil his patient really is, and he sets out to stop him before he destroys Haddonfield.
I first met Milton 3 years ago when he started kindergarten. I saw this 5-year-old child with a blank, emotionless face and eyes that had absolutely no compassion in them. No conscience whatsoever.
He claims that LeMilton is not human, but officials won't even lock him up, much less kill him, which is proven shortly after when LeMilton kills a dog, much like Michael Myers did in Halloween, but the young delinquent is let free without consequence. Riley finds out while sitting next to the window at school, where he sees a vengeful-looking LeMilton appear and scare the crap out of him. A direct parallel to Laurie Strode's first sighting of Michael Myers as a teenager.
Holy look!
Riley!
He was just there!
Dumas phones from a telephone booth to warn Granddad of LeMilton's release, but LeMilton has already made it to Riley's elementary school to get revenge on him for snitching. He methodically paces after the Freeman boy in the same fashion as his 70s slasher counterpart, and it ends on the roof, where the two fight and LeMilton is ultimately knocked from the ledge. This is probably the most ridiculous part, because ain't no way Riley is big enough to support LeMilton's weight. When Dumas sees this, he severs the connection, hoping LeMilton will fall to his death, which is the Boondocks equivalent of Dr. Loomis shooting Michael Myers 6 times and knocking him out the window. And in one more parallel to Halloween, when they look over the edge to the landing spot, the evil antagonist has disappeared.
He's gone. Oh wait, he's right there.
So Dumas goes after him again, but as far as the family is concerned, that's that. They all go home and LeMilton doesn't bother them again. Tosh.0 in the Boondocks presents two polar opposite approaches to depicting the prepubescent criminal. And in my opinion, they're both entertaining and I'm glad they exist to expand Latarian's mythos, but in terms of tact, there are issues with both. Tosh.0 legitimizes Latarian's behavior by celebrating it, making him a celebrity and essentially rewarding him for doing a really bad thing by making him look like this cool elementary-aged gangsta. The Boondocks does the opposite of glorifying him, making him and his grandmother out to be horrible people and influences, but maybe goes a little too far, literally inserting him into the spot of one of the most evil characters in the entire genre of horror. In psychology, there's this principle called commitment and consistency, which pop psychologist Robert Cialdini has written about extensively in his books. The idea is that labeling someone can cause that person to become more consistent with their label. For example, there was an experiment where those who were labeled as good citizens were more likely to display a drive safely sign in their yards. The concept extends to basically everything, including names. People named Dennis, for example, were statistically more likely to become a dentist. So labeling LeMilton Tayshaun as evil incarnate may have inadvertently caused the real Latarian, who was still 9 at the time, to embrace the identity of someone who does bad things. In terms of moral virtue, maybe Judge Judy had the right idea by just washing her hands of it entirely. Although I would have loved to see that episode. We can talk about expected social psychology all day, but how did Latarian actually react to all of this? Things were mostly quiet on the Latarian front for the next 5 years. Before we move on to his next appearance on the news, there was actually another 7-year-old who stole his parents' car in 2009, a Utah boy by the name of Preston Scarbrough.
As an officer chased down a suspect driving erratically, running through 2 stop signs. The chase lasted for several miles, and when the car finally stopped, a 7-year-old boy got out, ran out actually, from behind the wheel.
This one got some attention, scoring the family appearances on 2 daytime talk shows where, again, the kid is treated like a star. He gets a huge applause as he's introduced to the Ellen Show with a big smile on his face.
A couple churches and things like that, so.
Who are you waving at? Just people? Just like you?
The media clearly had not learned from the way that Latarian's case was handled. They basically rolled out the red carpet for Preston without him facing any kind of justice whatsoever. Interestingly, the Today Show asked many of the same questions that WPBF had.
Obviously, you've never driven a car, right? How did you know what to do?
I yanked it. I yanked the, thing.
Watch my mom and my sister.
That basically is what Latarian said, actually. But let's get into the question that we all want to know.
So how are you punishing? There has to be repercussions, right, Preston?
Grounded to my room for 4 days. No TV, no video games.
You gotta be kidding me. No video games again? I mean, 4 days is a better punishment than 2, but come on. On their Ellen appearance, we found out that the family got backlash for this, so they extended the grounding to 1 month, which was immediately invalidated 30 seconds later when this happens.
But to make sure that you have something to take off in that's gonna be safe, we got you this really, really cool Fisher-Price signature Cadillac Escalade. Take a look at this.
You gotta be kidding me. You can't reward him. So what, if he had shot someone, you would have taken him to go do laser tag with all his friends? Oh, he broke into someone's house? Why don't we just build him a tree house? Whatever, this kid is boring. There's a reason that Latarian was a bigger story. He's way more of a character, so let's go back to him. 2015 rolled around, and Latarian was graduating from middle school, so WPBF decided to catch back up with him and Vikita, sending out their Latarian Milton expert, Ted White, to hopefully end his story on a positive note.
He loves school. He loves people. I know from just talking to him that he was sorry for what he did, but he didn't seem to know any better at the time.
Wait a minute, that's not what you said 7 years ago.
He knows the seriousness of taking a car and how it could kill somebody or kill him. You know, he's nobody's fool.
Despite that inconsistency, it did seem that Latarian had reformed, with hopes to play pro football one day and possibly go into engineering and technology for the Navy as a backup. He reflected on his juvenile joyride.
Everyday people live and die, and that day angels was above me to save me before I didn't die. Doing wrong is bad, but doing good, I could be a success in doing dumb stuff.
I don't really know what he said at the end there because he's always mumbling, but I feel good about it. It seems like he's finally on the right path, which is what makes this next part so disappointing. In 2016, Latarian would have turned 16 years old, making him old enough to drive in the US, but he wouldn't get to enjoy his driver's license for long, because on May 21st, 2017, he would fall into his old ways. Ted White, take us away.
Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies have made an arrest in the case of an armed robbery and carjacking of a Lyft driver. That driver told detectives he picked up 4 males and a female early Sunday morning and drove them to a West Palm Beach apartment complex. After the woman got out, he says one man hit him in the back of the head with a gun after he refused to take them to another location. He says another man stole his iPhone and wallet. Authorities say the driver also positively identified the person who took off in his Toyota Highlander as 16-year-old Latarian Milton.
No, Latarian, you were so close, man. Why'd you have to steal another car? I guess you already told us why.
I want to do it because it's fun. It's fun to do bad things.
Latarian's phone number was connected to his Lyft account, so catching him was not all that difficult. Didn't really think that one through. What's crazy is that his mugshot as a 16-year-old looks even more like his Boondocks character than 7-year-old Latarian ever did. And Ted, man, Ted looks so tired. He stuck around to cover Latarian's first court date, where he faced charges of armed robbery and carjacking before being ordered to stay at a juvenile facility until his next court date. His grandmother was there, but this time wisely declined to speak to the press, stating that she'd be praying for him. That's another thing that I didn't really get into yet. Vikita Stratford is like a religious nut, because it wouldn't be one of my videos if something like this didn't come up. She's since covered herself in all of these prayer tattoos, and she just records herself grinning during these evangelist services. There's definitely evidence of it throughout her appearances, but she seems to have become more obsessed with it as the years have rolled on. I wouldn't be shocked to learn that she never disciplined Latarian because she was waiting for divine intervention or something. Needless to say, that did not happen, because after that, things got really messy. It looks like prosecutors decided not to pursue charges of burglary, robbery with a firearm, and felon in possession of a firearm to instead, ironically, just focus on carjacking. That disposition would be delayed until 2018, but in June 2017, Latarian was ordered to reside with his grandmother under house arrest. A month later, in July 2017, Latarian was arrested again for a different incident that happened back in November 2016. This time on accusations of burglary of a structure, grand theft, and petty theft. But none of these charges were pursued either, so he just had to worry about the carjacking thing. And one day shy of his 17th birthday, Latarian was ruled guilty by Judge Jeffrey Gillen. WPBF didn't cover the verdict, as far as I know, but if they had, it might have gone something like this. Latarian Milton is not your typical 17-year-old. Few his age are sentenced to 3 years jail time for carjacking a Lyft driver's vehicle. He was credited with 651 days of time already served from his house arrest, so his assigned jail time was a little over a year. It seems like after this, things just totally fell apart for the kid. We only have court records to go on from this point forward, but Latarian filed a domestic violence case against his grandmother in September. Maybe she really did whip his behind this time. But ultimately, this was dismissed after a hearing. In March 2019, she filed a suit against him to evict him from her home. According to my info, he should have been in jail at this time, so this was most likely a formality to prevent Latarian from moving back in with her when he was released. In May 2019, Latarian's original Channel 25 interview was sampled in a rap song called Hood Rat Shit by Megan Thee Stallion, which got over 2 million views.
But I wanted to do hood rat stuff for my friend.
Yeah, hood rat shit. Crazy that people are still making Latarian remixes over a decade later, but I don't know if anyone can top Jesus Was a Black Jew productions. In May 2019, it looks like Vikita Vikita filed a domestic violence injunction against Latarian. There's only so much info online, so I can only speculate, but I think it was most likely an attempt to force him to get rid of any firearms in his possession so that he wouldn't get into more trouble after being released. And this is what I meant when I said that the character depicted in the Boondocks might have caused the real Latarian to embrace that identity. I'm also going to note that there are 2 more items on file. The first was for an offense committed on May 7th, 2019, where he was eventually found guilty of grand theft, petty theft, and false verification of ownership to a pawnbroker. The other is a misdemeanor for an offense committed July 21st, 2019, for violating a protection order. These should have been during his jail time for the carjacking, so I'm not sure how this is possible. There could be some key information missing from the Palm Beach County court records. Now, you may be asking yourself, where are the viral news clips for all of these crimes? What was Ted White doing during this time? Apparently, he was sharpening up his resume, because on December 6th, 2019, he said goodbye to his Channel 25 news station to take a job as a public safety officer with the Delray Beach Police Department.
Thank you for all the memories, and I'm just excited to have been a part of this news team, and I enjoyed working with each and every one of you, and I think it showed just by my demeanor and just the way I carry myself here. Thank you again.
Ted would hang up the microphone as the best to ever do it at WPBF. 7-year-old takes car on Joyride is their most popular video at 15 million views. Speaking of which, that would not be his last time driving without a license, despite what he promised us in 2010, shortly after his Tosh.0 appearance.
And when I grow up, then I can get a car, and I can drive and get my license.
Yeah, that bright orange color is a choice for you, Latarian. On November 11th, 2019, Milton was cited by Riviera Beach PD for driving without a valid driver's license and found guilty the following year in August 2020. In October 2020, Vikita Stratford bought herself a brand new Mercedes C300. I guess if there was a time to do it, getting a new vehicle while her thieving grandson was safely behind bars was probably the best move. Again, we don't know for sure if he was behind bars or on house arrest or what exactly was going on. One website claimed that Latarian was scheduled to be released on September 25th, 2021. It's a little messy with all of his sentences and time served credits, and I'm not a math expert, you gotta go to Dead Meat for that, but it seems believable. He may have gotten out early, actually. This photo was posted by his grandma in June 2020. I'm just speculating here, but I know some prisoners were released during the pandemic to reduce overcrowding. Latarian may have qualified considering his obvious underlying health issues. And it looks like he was able to reconnect with his grandma and other family in late 2021. So regardless of the missing details, it seems Latarian had finally faced the consequences for his disregard of the law and paid the price for it. Surely now it was over. He finally got the punishment he deserved, and he would not be getting into any more trouble with the law. Before we get there, it happened again in 2022. 7-year-old Daniel Wittenbach from Ohio woke up early, stood on a chair to grab the set of keys, and decided to take his parents' SUV for a spin.
We almost hit another work vehicle. It was a boy, a child.
With this being in 2022, there was actually a dashcam video of the whole thing. He ended up crashing into a Jeep, but thankfully he survived thanks to assistance from Good Samaritans. But now, back to Latarian. He was now 22 years old, and the Florida man found himself in Bergen County in New Jersey. On February 11th, 2023, Latarian was involved in a physical domestic dispute, and he abruptly exited in a red Hyundai Elantra with Florida plates, traveling on Route 17 until he was stopped by police. I guess some things never change.
I took it on a high-speed chase.
Milton was served with 2 criminal complaints, simple assault and resisting arrest. Some things really never change.
Wherever he could reach me, that's where he hit me.
New Jersey court records are not as publicly available as the records in Florida, so I don't know what came of this arrest. There are plenty of gossip websites posting rumors about the length of his new sentence, or even death rumors, but these are generally just filled with made up garbage. They all have his birthday wrong, they all have his mom wrong, I wouldn't believe any of it. Maybe it's for the best that Latarian stays off the public radar though, and hopefully he can get his life together before he gets involved in something much worse. Now you may be wondering, why did I make this video? I do it cause it's fun to do bad things. Also, check the date of this upload. If you like this, check out that playlist on the left for more viral internet horror histories. And make sure you subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell and select all notifications, and I will see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.